Looks like a nice summer day, except for your sweatshirt.
It's a good thing you can't see inside the house.
You have plastic over the windows?
No, we got the bathroom and the kitchen. They're replacing all the sewer pipes, actually. They all rusted out. So this is like 5
Oh,
pipe they got to replace. So it's been since Monday through Thursday, they're replacing everything. Big
we
job.
had, we had a cast iron pipe in the bathroom break underneath the bathroom floor. And it was the feed pipe, fortunately. But it happened when my neighbor was pet sitting for our cat. Our last day before getting back home over a Christmas break, and she used the toilet. So she's like, I'm never using your toilet again. But she used the toilet and it broke. You know, it probably would have broken on the very next flush, but it happened to be her. And she got back downstairs because the bathroom was upstairs, got back downstairs. She was in the kitchen and water started coming down between the kitchen and dining room in the doorway. She's like, uh-oh.
We had our upstairs neighbor, their toilet broke at 2 o'clock in the morning and flooded us out. I mean, we couldn't talk to anybody. We just couldn't do a thing. And it flooded out like
Ours was late
$20,000.
at night, like on New Year's Eve. So kind of the same thing, just about. She called a plumber she's used, who did come and turn the water off because she didn't know where to find out. We didn't have a water off upstairs in the bathroom. He had to go downstairs and in the basement and figure out which one it was. So,
Well, I was broke at the water supply, so the valve that turns the water off, they couldn't turn off to the whole building, which is like 24 units. But at 2 o'clock in the morning, not too many people noticed. But we got so flooded out, and all the laminate flooring went all underneath it. We got humble liquidators very well after that. To get somebody to come in and do it, you know, within a few days was almost impossible. But Lois talked to the right people, I guess.
Oh, she's persuasive, huh?
Oh, she gets on the phone with Verizon and that, and she'll be on there for three hours. But she gets what she wants. She's good at it.
In 15 minutes, I'm no longer the Christian person I like to think that I am when I'm on the phone with the customer service rep and things are not going my way. I try, but it's difficult. They stick to their script, then I stick to what I need, and they don't usually match.
That's why when we go to Apple over in Linfield, I don't see how the people that must be trained so well. They're so nice to you. You know, I know nothing about this, and they still help you. I wonder if anybody else is on.
How you doing, Ed? You must be watching Jeopardy because you're on mute.
I know, right? I'm still the office, actually. How are you?
I'm doing fine.
Yeah.
I'm fine.
Yeah.
Yep.
Dan, Frank, how are you doing?
We're hanging in there.
Yeah. Dan, every time I drive by Vets Fields, that sign, it's awesome.
That's beautiful.
We're so excited about that. I mean, that was her thing, that sign. She had to do that.
No, it looks great.
Oh. Very nice.
Are we still waiting for Nancy to join?
We are.
Okay. Dan, what's the material they used for the Vets Field sign?
I don't know. It's some kind of composite, like a plastic wood or something. It's a long story with that, but Bobby Sardella, who did it with Sardella Signs, he was so proud to do it himself. He says, I'm going to do a good job on this, Dan, because my family's been in town for so many years, and it's partly me and partly you, but I'm going to give you the best job I can give you.
Mm.
That's great.
Oops.
I think it's kind of like the sign there, welcome to Wakefield, the white one. That the, was it the Garden Club put up?
Yeah, right at
Yeah,
the upper common.
but even that's starting to show its age now. I think that's been there probably 20 years at least.
I think that's a Sardello sign too.
He did the Americal one, I think, too.
Yeah, definitely. Yes. Nancy, I think you're on mute.
Zoom told me that my version of Zoom was obsolete, and so I had to reinstall it, and then I had to reinstall my password, which I didn't remember, and then they had to send me a code, and I didn't get it, and meanwhile, I have to do something about show captions.
They usually send you a code and give you 5 seconds to mark it down.
And they didn't give me, and they said I used the wrong one. It's unbelievable. I allowed 10 minutes, to get myself here and make sure I had the code and everything. Nope. All right. Well, we are ready now. So we will call the meeting to order at 7:35. And ask Dan to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance
Allegiance to the flag of the
United
United States of America,
to the
to the
republic,
republic for which it stands,
one nation,
one nation, under
under
God, indivisible,
indivisible, with liberty
and justice
for
for
all.
all. Okay, thank you, Dan. First on the agenda is public participation. Is there any public?
Hi.
Hi, are you the public?
I guess so. If the rest of you are all members of the committee, I'm the public tonight.
Is that you, Cindy?
It's Cindy Schatz, sorry.
How
Cindy
are
Schatz,
you? Nice
8
to
Porter
see you.
Street.
What historical stuff do you have to?
Well, I happen to be the neighbor to a house that I think might be on your agenda, number 6 Cordis Street.
Right,
That, to me,
right,
it's the Kraus house. To you might be called the Nichols house.
right.
So I'm here to listen.
Okay. I think we'll certainly want your input, and we will we can, if you like, we can take that out of order so that we're making it easier on your time. It is number 6
17.
on our agenda, but we can just move it up to talk about it right now.
Oh,
We
okay.
have received a notice from the building inspector saying that a request to demolish has come in for 6 Cordis Street. The Jonathan Emerson Cottage. Yeah, 6 Cordis Street. I've actually visited that house in the past and found it to be a lovely little house. It's got a significant history. I sent everybody on the commission our inventory sheet with its historical significance. Not only does it include a part of a building that was built in 1790, but that part of the building was the home of Mary Courtney, a Black woman who took in laundry at the lake to support herself, and that the cottage was moved to join this house when it was owned by Mr. Nichols, a cobbler and a jobber. What we usually do, Cindy, and as the commission knows, is we would decide at this time, having just received this from the building inspector, whether we should hold a public hearing on this application to demolish.
Okay.
in my opinion, we should hope this is a significant structure, and we should hold a public hearing. Kathlena, did you raise your hand?
Oh, I don't know if I raised my hand, but I agree with you. I think we should have a public hearing and I'd like to hear more about the condition of the house.
Cindy, do you have anything to offer on that, since it is your neighbor?
The condition, I would say, is pretty horrible. I've been living next to the house for 30 years. And for the past, where do I have my dates? Harold Kraus died in 2007, and his wife Marie died in December of 2019. Harold was 77 when he died, and he wasn't really keeping up anything in his last years. And after he died, nothing happened to the house, even though they had a son who was in the construction business. And I would say it's been rotting from the outside in for the past 10 years. There's, it's a wood clapboard, I guess you call it, house, wood siding. And there have been significant pieces which have been off, and I've seen squirrels and birds going in it for years. A lot of rot around dormers and windows and up on the roof line. I mean, I have been unable to believe that people have been allowed to live in there for the past couple of years. I would think that there'd be significant issues of mold going on with weather getting into that house. And probably, I've been thinking that the only thing that would be in good shape would probably be the stone foundation to it, concrete foundation. I had heard that I knew that the house went up for auction the end of May, I believe it was, either end of April or end of May, public auction. It was held right on the street in front of the house. End of May. And I watched it from my yard. I didn't know the person who had purchased it. I did meet that person later in the summer. They came over and introduced themselves, and they told my husband and I in two separate meetings when they were over that they were interested in tearing it down. And frankly, I thought that had I had the money to buy it at that time, I would have torn it down, because I didn't really think there could be any. I was been in the house 15 years ago, was probably the last time I was in there. And I didn't really see any redeeming value to the house at that point. I know it was built in like either 1840 or 1850. The houses on both sides of me, one's in 1840, one's in 1850, and they've both been neglected for a long time. They both have had cases where the owners died and the heirs, one's a grandchild, one's a child, have just let them go and done nothing. I mean, I haven't seen any tradesmen at either house. So had I had the money, I probably would have been putting in the demolition permit myself. Not looking to build anything glorious there, but just did not think that the house could really be brought back to life. So,
Well, thank you for your
I was surprised
opinion
that it
on
was on this listing, but I didn't realize it was on the historical commission's list.
Yeah, it certainly is. And it does have a significant history. And on
Yeah.
the basis of that history, I think we should proceed to a public hearing.
The
on the
pictures you
matter.
have on your listing sheet contrast incredibly with the pictures that I've taken of the house from my side. The pictures that are on, I don't know what your record is called, but it makes it look very nice. And if you view it from the east side of the house, which is where I am, you see it just falling apart, which is very sad. That any house, no matter how old it is, be allowed to get that neglected. I mean, I called the Board of Health on this house because they had piles of trash in the backyard. They had piles of used lumber And I don't know if it was pulled out of their garage, which I call a shed because a car can't get into that. I've never seen a car entrance to that. It's always looked like a shed to me from both sides of it. But I think a lot of wood, I mean, I don't know if they took something apart inside that house, because this lumber was a 4 to 5 foot high pile of lumber out there. And I had to call the Board of Health because it was there for months and months, as well as a lot of trash. So I'm thinking, and they left the back door open for months. I'm thinking that, mice and other rodents may have had their way in there as well. So the condition is sad, unfortunately.
Our usual practice would be to give a notice of public hearing, which would take place next month.
Okay.
What do the other members of the commission have to say about this?
Can I ask Cindy a question?
Yeah.
Did the new owner of the building elaborate on what he plans to do with it? Build another single-family house? Or-
Another single family house. Not trying to go any farther than this one is toward the street or any farther back than this one is.
It's definitely a nice location.
It's a great location. The houses in this area are selling for $1 million these days. 1.7, one of the houses sold for a month ago. So I'm sure that with the view that you get from that house, it's up on a bit of a hill, that he'd get quite a bit of money for that, flipping the lot.
I'm just interested in the character of the buildings beside it that blend in together. So a single
Yeah.
family.
Yeah, I haven't seen a drawing.
Well, we can certainly invite the new owner to come to the public hearing, which would take place at the time of our next meeting in January. Fran, do you have, you've been kind of the master of the schedule. Can you tell us the date of our next regularly scheduled meeting?
Are we doing the 3rd or the
The-
4th?
Either one, which is everybody's pleasure, the 3rd or 4th Tuesday of the month.
So it's the 17th or the 24th.
Okay, let's take the 24th. Is everyone in agreement for that?
Yes, sounds good.
Everybody is okay, and Cindy, you're more than welcome to come to that
Sure.
on the 24th. Just for your information, all we could do, even if we were to decide the building was preferably preserved, is to put a 6-month demolition delay on it. And the clock starts ticking the minute he takes out the application for the demolition. So the clock started ticking on December 2nd.
So I have another question. I read the document about a little bit of the history of the house and the section about the L, which I believe is the kitchen now, or part of the kitchen, being on Main Street opposite Wave Street, but wouldn't that be on the slope? I mean, there's no significant land on the other side of Main Street from Wave Avenue. From
A
Lawrence.
lot of buildings that were picked up and moved around and added to other buildings.
Right, but Wave Avenue, where it connects to Main Street, the slope is like this down to the lake. So I'm wondering if that document is accurate.
Well, we have not
just the
been
first time I
on,
read it.
you have it all over us with regard to knowing the lay of the land for the property. We have not walked the property. Okay, so I can't answer that question.
Well, this is about the L that was the piece that was appended to the house. Where
And you
it
want to know
originally
exactly
was.
where that was before it was moved to the,
Yeah, because when it says it was on opposite Wave on the west side of Main Street, it doesn't seem to me, unless it was like right on the shoreline, I can't
Yes,
imagine,
that's where it would have been.
I
there
can't
were a
imagine that
couple-
the land is even wide enough for a house.
There were a couple of small properties that were
Yeah.
owned by people who took in laundry, and they
Okay.
were right on the lake,
Interesting. I'll have to
making
look at
it
an old map.
easier to do the laundry.
They washed,
Yeah,
they washed it in Lake Quantico.
They washed it in Lake
They must have.
Quantipac. Yep, that's where it was.
okay.
Yeah, I think back,
Okay.
maybe back in the 1800s might have been totally different too. And the sidewalks, I don't even know if they had sidewalks back then.
No, and it was considered to have been built in around 1790.
Mhm.
We'll see if we can track down further information on that particular
Okay.
part of it. So,
Well,
okay, so-
Nancy, I think back then too on Lake Quantico, didn't they have a steamboat that operated right there on the edge?
well, a little later, around 1870,
Okay.
the Mini Mariah, a little steamboat that went back and forth. Yep. Yep, those were the days, huh? Okay, so that will be taken up by us at our public hearing on January 24th. Okay,
All right, thank you.
all right, thank you. We like to have guests. Okay, we'll move on to review of the minutes. Did you guys get the minutes?
Yes.
Yes,
All right, did you you have any additions, deletions, corrections?
they look good to me.
Okay,
I'll
anybody
make,
else?
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes.
Okay. All in favor?
I,
Okay, the minutes have been accepted. Now, on the subject of our annual budget, our present budget is the princely sum of $2,000 per year. That just about covers our public hearing costs for the notice of public hearings. I would very much like to see if we could kind of double that budget for the upcoming year so that we could maybe do a project or two, maybe make a prototype of an interpretive marker or something like that, because with $2,000, we really don't have any leeway at all.
So would actually have 6 public hearings and use up all that money.
Yeah. So what do you all think about that? Should we stick with our $2,000 a year, or?
Well, we're here to preserve history, and I think 2,000 is not enough, and whatever we can get over that, we appreciate it.
Right, and then $4,000 a year is really not very much in terms of the town's overall budget. Ed, do you have any input on on that?
I know that there are a lot of opportunities through the state to a lot of historical preservation grants that seem to be coming down the pipeline. So I do think we should probably look at that as well as an option, because I think that would be more meaningful dollars no matter what for some of these things. But we can certainly look at ways to improve the opportunities with the dollars we have.
I think we would appreciate that. The historical commission, the Mass Historical Commission's grant opportunities are primarily the Preservation Project Fund, which is matching funds for a larger project. They only get about $800,000 a year for the entire state. And we did receive a Preservation Project Fund grant years ago for the restoration of the West Ward School. But we have not applied for anything as a town since then. There are also preservation planning grants, and once again, that's a matching fund kind of thing. So we kind of have to have the funds in hand before we go forward with almost anything. So I think the little pad of having an additional $2,000 a year might be helpful.
I do know that, and if this isn't the right place, Nancy, I'm happy to hold it till the right point in the agenda. At the November 14th, I think it was, town council meeting, I spoke about the issue of the monument restoration. Bob Vincent had also made some comments relative to that, and I was able to secure I think at this point it's $10,000 for doing the assessment of the monuments, and that's through ARPA funds, and I expect we'll be able to secure additional funding if necessary, in order to have the assessment of the status of disrepair for that. And from there, I do think there is an appetite for the town to look at ways to be able to meaningfully restore that going forward. So I think that's a bit of good news. Because I know we had talked about this at prior meetings. We first need to really kind of have an updated assessment of, or analysis done. And then from there, we can determine what needs to be, what the project costs were, because there are a lot of questions about how much would it cost. And I explained that until we do that analysis and have that assessment done, we don't know, how much we're talking. And so I think the town council had an appetite for that. And as I said, preliminarily has already approved $10,000 as a first step. But if I need to go back, I explained I would. I'm happy to do that. But I think my understanding was 10,000 would probably get us at least that first stage of an assessment done.
I understand, and I very much appreciate your support for that. And we have to thank Councillor Vincent as well for his significant efforts to he was trying to get more money for the overall project. But your point is excellent, that we don't know how much that's going to cost. The last assessment was done in 2007. And so a new assessment has been, it's in the works. And I guess the people from Daedalus Art Company, the people who did the original assessment and who have done monument repair all over Greater Boston, are coming on the 28th of December. So we will know, I guess by then, at least what the assessment is going to cost, and hopefully it won't cost more than the 10,000 that has been allotted. And then once they've done the work, and I understand that they think it will be at least $250,000 to do all the repairs without having looked at it. So yeah, that was on my list for later on, but the list is fluid. We don't have to keep. We don't have.
But Nancy, if it ends up being more, the assessment ends up being more, I'll go back to the town council, and I'm confident that I'll be able to secure whatever we need to have that done. But I think once we have that figure in mind, once we know what we're talking about, then it's a different discussion that can be had, right, relative to that. But until we have that, I think it's just premature, because we're kind of just shooting in the dark a little bit with that. Let me talk with Steve Mayo and Kevin Gill about that budget piece, because I'm trying, even whether it's 2,000 or 4,000, I'm also just thinking how we can best deploy dollars to have the maximum impact. And I don't even candidly think 4,000 is going to do a whole lot, relative to that. So maybe if we are more focused on specific projects, like you're saying, then we can, really think about where they fall, because it could potentially also fall on capital. I mean, there's a number of different ways we could, number of different sources we could potentially pull funds from, if it's something that is meaningful historic preservation. And I think there's a lot of opportunities there for it, if we can identify them as a group.
Right, and a couple of the things that we have been talking about for a while are a system of interpretive markers, maybe at Lakeside. And something that I think we really is way overdue is to put up some kind of a marker on the common in honor of the over 200 people who are buried there in a, in a nice tasteful way, maybe with like a slate gravestone kind of thing. But that would certainly cost at least $2,000. And I don't know if that would really come under signage, but you would be a better arbiter of that. But I appreciate that, and we appreciate it if you would bring this matter to Steve Mayo and Kevin Gill. I know he's anxious to get the budgets all buttoned up.
Right. And Historical Commission has historically has been one of the first budgets that we review, because it's rather straightforward usually. I just think if we have and Nancy, we can talk further offline too. If I just have a better sense of some of the top priorities, I think it might be a better way of thinking about how we make the dollars work.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, as long as we get enough money to pay for our public hearings, as they knock
Right.
buildings down all over the town.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's certainly a bigger issue there, that I think kind of like that's like a systemic issue. I think we have that's I don't know if that's a dollar discussion as much as it is a process discussion of, I just feel like we're as I mentioned before, we're losing too much, and I don't see enough opportunity with the ZBA, for instance, when they're looking at the design, of these new projects, for instance, to respect the historical significance of a lot of sites, or just the general character of where a lot of buildings are being constructed.
And the overall problem of what sounds like has been going on at 6 Quarter Street, of kind of demolition by neglect. We can't do anything about that. And I think in some towns they have some sort of a bylaw on the books where the building inspector would be notified, but it's an enormously complicated and cumbersome process, and something that I don't know would be practical or practicable here in Wakefield. But well, we appreciate that, so we'll kind of table our budget discussion then, with everybody's approval. Is everyone okay with that?
Sure.
Yes.
Okay.
Can I ask one question, Nancy? When
Sure.
was our 150th anniversary of Wakefield?
1994.
So this should be 20 years, 15 or 20 years before we come on our 400th. Might be a good project for our 400th.
God.
We're all around.
The 350th almost killed me the last time around. I don't think I'm quite that old. That we're yeah, we got a few years to go before hopefully we'll all make it to our 400th anniversary. Okay, let's move on to the next issue on our agenda. And it was going to be the state of the restoration of historic sites that the town is currently undertaking, one of which is the Civil War monument. The second is the bandstand, which I understand from Fran is still being evaluated by the Department of Public Works in association with WCNA. Is that correct, Fran?
That is what I was told, yes.
Okay. Then we would have to believe that the matter is well in hand.
Yeah, I think they want a thorough investigation and analysis so that they know exactly what it's going to take to then do the repairs. And perhaps have to prioritize things.
Right.
I had discussions about this back over the summer, and I'm meeting with DPW about priorities going forward, probably later this week or early next. So I'll raise it with Joe Conway and Bill Renault at that time too.
We appreciate that. I had wanted to do a historic structure report on the building. But that would be a process or the structure. That would be a process that would take time that we don't have, because I understand that there are some immediate needs of the bandstand. So we got to move forward with it. And with the help of the WCNA and certainly Peter Scott, we can be confident that, and our DPW, of course, that they're going to give it the loving care that it needs and deserves. Okay, in other matters, you might remember a few months ago, a lot of people came to the Historical Commission because they're concerned about the proposed demolition of the forest near the vocational school in association with the construction of the new vocational school building. And the reason that they brought it to the Historical Commission was because we all know that Breakheart is an enormously archaeologically sensitive area. And they wondered if we knew if any assessment was done of that area prior to the Mass Historical Commission signing off on it. So I wrote to the Mass Historical Commission and received a letter back about a month later from the Deputy State Historic Preservation Officer, Edward Bell, saying that an archaeological survey was not conducted on the project. They were notified of the project in July of 2020, but the Mass Historical Commission staff did not comment on the project. And so that's why an assessment was not done. So I'm just basically reporting on that. So.
Are we talking the whole school or just the energy park?
Well, as I understand it, they're going to put they're going to blast off a ledge and a lot of forest land in order to, I think 14 acres, is that what I heard? That can't be right, but in order to build a new school, high up. And I'm by no means an expert on the project, but their concern and that they brought to us was about the archaeological sensitivity of the area. And I had believed that the Mass Historical Commission would have done an assessment, but they did not. Okay. Now, does anyone else have any agenda items?
So I wonder if we could talk about the demolition delay.
Yep.
And it may not be so much as the Historical Commission Board, but maybe we can come up with some ideas. How do we deter people from tearing down homes to build something brand new, especially in neighborhoods that have character and historic homes there. And I don't know what the people on Quarter Street plan on doing, and that's really not my focus, but last month we had a 3-family home that was going to be demolished so that another 3-family home could be built. And in my mind, it's like, you could work within the structure that you have. You can change the facade, you could do an addition. You don't need to demolish, and the house doesn't need to be 90% of the lot.
Well, your point is well taken, Fran. I don't know what we could do about that. It's there are economic imperatives. I mean, if they can, instead of having this little cottage on the land at 6 Quarter Street, they can probably build a McMansion in its place. Even if it doesn't occupy the entire lot. If, as they said to Cindy Schatz, that they would kind of keep within the footprint of it. But that's not something that the Historical Commission can do anything about. That's an issue for the Board of Appeals.
Yeah, it seems like every month we're just going to keep hearing the same thing. And I agree that neglect of a property should not be a reason that now you want to demolish it. I mean, I don't know what happened when the health department went in and talked to the people that were living there, if it was unsafe or, you know, it shouldn't have been inhabitable, but, you know, things could be saved if they're brought to the attention sooner rather than later.
And of course, we don't know the condition of the property at
Right.
all.
Right.
I think an equally concerning aspect to that is not just when there's deterioration, but also when there's any work that just strips a property of all of its character. And that is all too often an issue that I'm seeing with a lot of the properties that are still habitable. They are almost devoid of any of the character that, you know, made them distinctive. And I think on the business side, we're working on a facade improvement program, and I think a lot of that will hopefully be with the engagement of the Historical Commission to offer some perspective from a design, you know, from the design perspective. But you know, for the single-family residences or even multifamily residences, we really just don't have that. We don't have a mechanism at present that helps in any way. It's so frustrating, even when you see buildings that are being improved upon, but the improvements don't give a nod to any of the historical significance of the structure.
All right, well, maybe, you know, keep us informed, Ed, and if there's anything that you want input or volunteers, please let us know.
I've done a lot of work with the like sign bylaw review committee, trying to figure out ways that we can encourage businesses and facades to do more that are, again, in keeping with the character of the town and also its history. But I do think that we need to maybe think about other ways that, again, it seems like a lot of that is collaboration with the ZBA though too, because they get those design plans and they often offer feedback and comments, but I don't know that they necessarily look at these designs through a historical lens in any meaningful way. And to my understanding, so far, or like to date, those designs don't really pass through the Historical Commission, right? Like, Nancy, you don't receive those in any way for comment.
No.
So I think that would be part of it, because that's the opportunity for a lot of these, at least a lot of the newer, any of the variances, obviously, or the new construction, it has to pass through, a certain set of criteria. And I feel like the Historical Commission should logically be part of that process, and it's not currently. So I would like to explore how we could do that going forward for your commission.
I think that's an excellent point. Certainly in terms of the businesses and Main Street businesses in particular, we do have a wealth of documentation we can call on in order to help out with that. And I think that we'd be certainly willing and would welcome that opportunity.
Whenever I go back and look at those photos of Main Street and how much charm and character was there, and how much of that today would make it look so much more quaint. You know, we're doing a lot of the streetscape redesign, but a lot of it is the facade element too. And that's even we found that in Albion. That's a lot of the focus now, because we've gotten the streetscape to a much better place. But now it's, you know, I've spoken a lot with Steve Mayo on this point too, about how we go about incentivizing the property owners along Albion to be more restorative in the work that they're doing, to try to bring back some level of character, you know, to that strip, because that's really what's missing now, I think, more than anything.
Then there are several National Register buildings on Albion Street. I think it looks great. I was thrilled when I drove down Albion Street right after the pandemic, and lots of things had changed. I understand it has been a hard process for the people that live there or have businesses there while the improvements were going on, but I think it looks great now, although it did lose some parking, which is always a big problem. But good job, Wakefield, I think, on Albion Street.
Well, we did scoop up some additional spots in the item lot now that people
Right.
are often aren't as aware of, but especially for employee parking and for the business, for the merchants. So we're able to have find that as an offset. But I still think we see a lot. I mean, a lot of those, we have the old gas and light building, obviously, which is historically significant and great, but there's a lot of other that you just kind of vinyl sided over that have really been stripped of their character. So I'd like to be able to see how, and I think part of it is to answer your question earlier about what we can do. Perhaps it is with the looking at how we are incentivizing at least the businesses with facade improvement grants and the like, because we have a little more control that way if we're making, you know, if we have create financial incentives for them. So I think that's something we can do, at least on the business side. It does become harder on the residential side of things.
And there's an 18th century building right there on the right on Albion Street, and then there's the old home of Charles Hartshorn, which is now Florence's Fashion. I wonder what old Mr. Hartshorn would have made of that. I don't know. But anyway, that's really encouraging, actually, Ed, to think that we might or the Historical Commission might have some input into that process. If we could be helpful in that way, I think that would be something we would like very much.
Nancy, if I could get on my bandwagon again.
Yep. Get on it.
Just watching them dig up Albion Street. And I know for a fact that there's cobblestones under there. There
Right.
was old trolley tracks. I wish they
Right.
would have some of those cobblestones and put in benches or use the old trolley tracks and cut them and use them for some purpose. I wish they would have done with the cobblestones, made the crosswalks going across Albion Street. And you could have put a sign up there saying, this was Albion Street 125 years ago, cobblestone. And I wish they would have done that. Or do like they do at, what's the restaurant area down in Providence, Rhode Island, Federal Hill. Okay, put some lighting across Albion Street, make it into a cultural center, but make it unique.
Well, I think that was the idea. And I do think that they did salvage a lot of the cobblestones, Dan, at one time.
But what did they do with it?
Well, we were able to harvest some of them in order to do edging around the schoolhouse yard at the Little Red.
But I'm saying put benches on Albion Street that are cobblestone or even granite curbing, but something reuse what they have there. They could have used. And the other-
My
Now-
daughter was actually working for the water department one summer, and one of her main jobs was moving cobblestones that were harvested from Albion Street over to some area near Crystal Lake. I mean, the kids carried the cobblestones around all summer long. She still gets kind of nauseous when she thinks about cobblestones.
With history and projects, the ZBA, places like on Foundry Street with Grayson Lofts, I don't know where that came from, but you know, that's Harvard Mills, or why don't they call it Foundry something, or a Wakefield name people would recognize? You know, that
Right.
was aligned with foundries. So why call it something like Grayson Lofts? You know, the zoning board of appeals should look into something like that, just the naming of projects.
I think that's probably a good idea from the standpoint, certainly of the history of the town, but also of the project.
Yeah.
But we can't regulate really what people want to invest their money in, and the relative levels of
Yeah.
taste, kind of.
I do think if we had a certain level of incentivizing, that's part of what we were trying to do with some of the signed bylaws, is streamlining the processes for businesses, but also incentivizing them by, in essence, giving a lookbook to them. I do wonder how many of these developers would at least be open to it if it was presented to them more proactively. And I think that's probably something we could think about, ways in which historical commission can work with ZBA, or perhaps as an independent, arm, so that these, as a part of the process, these projects are consulted, for historical significance or historical input earlier on when they're making those determinations.
Do you happen to know if the project at the head of the lakes has a name for the entire project?
I don't believe it does as of yet, but I think that's a perfect example. I mean, there's a lot of history obviously tied into the lake. I think that the more that they knew about that, but I think that Dan is a great example of the historical commission could have a more active role now while things are still being planned out.
So that's how can we make that happen?
Yeah, I'm trying to think about ways in which we can do that. So let me give you a little bit of more thought. Yeah, I can also talk with our building inspector too, and try to get some of his input on that as well. All right, I'll run with that a little bit, if you will.
Okay, great. You're proving to be a valuable member of our committee.
You're the committee, I'm just the liaison.
I know, but we're delighted. We're delighted to have your attention and your help.
And can I congratulate Ed on the house that he lives in? I remember that, and you've done a great job on that building, believe me. You brought it back to the splendor of years ago.
A lot of craftsmen. It was seeking out a lot of craftsmen in order to make that happen. Yeah.
It looks great.
Thanks.
It really does. Years ago, a man came into my shop and told me that he was a National Park Service carpenter who was doing work on the house.
Yes.
Quite some time ago. Yeah.
We still have him. He'll still come to do various projects. Yeah, he's been great.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. So now we just need to encourage other people to be of the same mentality, and the same trying to preserve the town, not just make money from the town. Okay, are there any other matters? All right, then can I have a motion to adjourn?
What if we,
What, you don't want to, Dan?
Motion to adjourn this evening's meeting.
Okay, Fran,
I'll second that.
discussion. All in favor?
Hi.
I say ho, 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 and everybody have a happy Christmas, and we'll see you all next year.
Okay, happy holidays.
Everyone.
Happy holidays.
Bye now.
Thank you all.